I thought yours was the best. You were most enthusiastic. I like the way you jumped into the screen. I thought, this is good.
Thank you so much.
Good for you.
I thought mine was...
How about Pam ask Izumi one of the table topic question? She demonstrates that question. Literally, and I'm the area director for her club. The way she demonstrated the question, oh my God, if you have to go back to, and I'm like, oh my God, what is she doing? Literally, she demonstrated the question.
You know, I think that would be an excellent training also, because as we can see in these contests, people don't move. They just don't use their body. And so you'd be great, Izumi.
Thank you so much.
There you go.
And you know, she's the best example that virtual backgrounds will not work for Izumi.
Which one wouldn't work?
Virtual backgrounds.
Oh, virtual. Okay. Because she would, it's true.
Oh, funny. Thank you, everybody, for joining this Toastmaster Revelation program. We have an amazing guest, Kristian, who will be introduced later by the Toastmaster of the day. Before we start, let me quickly explain in 2 minutes what this program is all about. Nelson Mandela has said that education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. But how should we actually apply those knowledges in our daily life? This is an educational session to learn how the communication and leadership skills that you gain at Toastmasters help you. The Toastmaster Revelation program will invite renowned Toastmasters in the Bay Area and around the world. Each session highlights the most transformational moments experienced by these illustrious Toastmasters. The session will be held every Saturday 2 to 3 p.m., providing a bridge to our Toastmasters to apply their skills in the real world. Today, there will be Q&A towards the end, moderated by the Toastmaster of the day. Then closing session comes in. During the closing session, I will post a link to a feedback format, so please make sure to submit the response. With that, let me invite the Toastmaster of the day, certified world-class speaking coach and a distinguished Toastmaster, Elaine Lang. Over to you, Elaine.
Thank you, Izumi, and welcome everyone to the Toastmaster Revelation program. Today's presenter has been a Toastmaster since 2006. He currently belongs to 2 Toastmaster clubs in the Monterey area, the Bayview Toastmasters and the Oratory Otters. Our speaker has been competing as a Toastmaster since 2007. And since 2007, he has won the district speech evaluation contest, not once, not twice, but a district record 3 times. Today, you will learn the fundamentals of an effective evaluation and a roadmap of how to achieve it. So sit back and get ready to evaluate the evaluator. Please help me welcome Mr. Kristian Crump.
Thank you so much, Elaine. Thank you, Gavin, for hosting this exquisite forum that many of us can come together and speak on the topics that are close to our hearts in Toastmasters. And that's exactly what we are going to do today. We are going to talk about evaluation. And I love evaluation. As Elaine mentioned, I've been to the district stage many times and have gained many items from that. And I don't say that to influence you. I say that to put the idea in your mind that through hundreds of evaluations, there are tips and techniques that allow us to become better communicators. And my job today is threefold. One is to talk about why we evaluate. Second is what to evaluate. And third is how we evaluate. We have a limited amount of time today, so we're going to get right into it. And we're going to go over the overview of what today is going to happen. I'm going to talk for about 20-25 minutes. And then we're going to have a test speaker. In the content portion that I speak on, you're going to take hopefully copious notes and listen to our test speaker and then break out into breakout rooms and see if you can take the same skills that we talk about this afternoon and apply them to what you see our test speaker demonstrate as a speaker. Then we'll come back, I'll give my evaluation so you can compare what maybe you missed or that you saw, that I saw, or that I missed. And then we'll have a Q&A near the end of the hour so we can all come together and answer any questions. After the hour at 3 o'clock, I'm going to stick around as long as needed to take one-on-one questions, or you can feel free to reach out to me at any time after this session at kristiancrump.com, and we'll connect via Zoom, phone call, however, over a cup of coffee, 12 feet apart with some plexiglass, and continue the conversation. So if you would please put in the chat a PDF that I have for everybody. It's a 6-page PDF, and I'll be referencing that PDF as we go throughout the speech today. You don't have to follow along. I'll reference it. This is recorded. You can always follow up if you really want to dive into evaluations. But I'll be talking a little bit about this PDF. It has a roadmap for you that when you do listen to our test speaker, you can use this roadmap that I'll talk about in about 15 minutes or so. So I guess my main purpose here is why we evaluate. What's the psychology of evaluation? I'm going to go to gallery view real quick. And if you could give a virtual raise of your hands, if you love evaluation, if you join Toastmasters so you could evaluate your boss, your coworker, your friends, your lovers, anyone that's in your life. A few hands, that's about 5%, 10% of folks. That's true. Most of us join Toastmasters so we could just get over the idea of learning to speak. And there's a psychology to speaking that takes place that we find in Toastmasters, and you may be or may not be clear of this psychology that takes place. And for me, it's 3 body positions I see a brand new speaker show when they give a speech. A little bit harder to pick up in a Zoom setting, but when we used to meet back in the good old days, face-to-face, you could definitely see this. The first, when we are neophyte speakers, what takes place is I'm going to do a profile look here. Let's go ahead and tilt this down a little bit. A profile look. What the neophyte speaker does is the neophyte speaker is on their heels. They're back. All the energy, all the eyeballs are pointing towards them, and so they're pushing back, scared as can be to be in front of an audience. That is a key in or an energy in stance, and we don't want that when we learn to speak. And so we start off with pathways, level 1, project 1, 2, and 3, giving the icebreaker, figuring out what worked, what didn't work, and applying a few things to that from our evaluators. That space, we're going to talk about a little later, is that energy in. And we want to get comfortable with ourselves. And so we want to be at position number 2 is right on our feet, right here. That is maybe pathways level 2, level 3. You're a little more comfortable with public speaking. You know the ins and outs. You know the body. You know the introduction. You know the conclusion. None of the people have kicked you off your broadband yet. And so you feel pretty comfortable that you've gotten this speaking thing down. What we want to get to is the level 3, and the level 3 is leaning in. So I'm on my toes. I'm leaning into the audience. I'm gaining insight into the audience. I'm asking them questions. I'm moving in. This psychology is extremely important when we evaluate because we see the exact same framework take place. You're giving maybe 5 speeches, 10 speeches along, and then somebody asks you to evaluate. All of a sudden you go into energy in. I don't want to do it. I'm not going to raise my hand. I'm scared. I don't want to do it. The 2 main reasons why we don't step up to evaluate is 1, we don't feel that we have the worth inside of ourselves, and 2, we don't have the tools to do it. And today, we're going to talk about self-worth, and we're going to talk about tools. Because the next Revelation program, next Saturday, is by an award-winning evaluator as well, and he will be continuing the conversation on how to evaluate a more advanced speaker. Today's format is to get us into the position so we can say yes. When I started out in Toastmasters, I was the eternal Toastmaster procrastinator. Every time I signed up to give a speech, the day before, the hour before, maybe even the minutes before, my throat tightened up and I said, I can't do it. I'm not going to give a speech. And I would bow out. And so the Toastmaster, the president, whoever the leader was in my club said, okay, Kristian, you're going to evaluate. So I gave 10 evaluations for probably every 1 speech I gave. Doing the old competent communication manual, that was 10 speeches to get your CCC. That was over 100 speeches before I even got my CC. And doing the evaluations over and over and over and got me more and more comfortable to evaluate folks. And I believe the reason why most of us fear evaluation is because we don't say yes. We're afraid. We're afraid of what we're going to say. We're afraid of hurting somebody's feelings. Evaluations are tough. Not only do we have to give an impromptu speech, 5 minutes or 10 minutes after we hear it, we have to be analytical with that speech of pros and cons of the speech. And lastly, we have to relate with somebody else and tell them what we thought of their speech right in front of everybody else. The pressure is on. So it's no reason why people bow out and they sink back. They have the no, I don't think I'm going to do it. Somebody else can evaluate. And what happens is way leads on to way until we don't evaluate and we don't get better. We don't get better because we don't evaluate. At the end of this session, I want you to have the moxie inside of your heart and brain to say, yes, I'm going to stand up. I have the wherewithal to do it and I have the tools to do it. So next meeting, I'm going to sign up for evaluators. We want 10 people say, no, I'm going to evaluate. No, I'm going to evaluate. Let me evaluate Pam. No, I want to evaluate Holly. Who's going to evaluate Elaine Long? I don't know. There's 10 people to choose from. So my job today is encourage you to do that, to step up and say yes. And we're going to go over the tools to do that. So if you grab your handouts, I'm going to read it. If you don't have it in front of you, that's perfectly fine. The purpose of today's workshop is to better understand the fundamentals of an effective evaluation. What makes an evaluation effective? The purpose of an effective evaluation, to facilitate effective communication between the speaker's ideas and the audience's comprehension. The speaker's ideas and the audience's comprehension. And the big word that rests on is called empathy. We want to have empathy. We want to know, what is the audience going through right now? Are they scared to listen to me speak? Are they excited to listen to me speak? Are they bored about me speaking? As a speaker, I need to be tuned into that audience so I know exactly what tools I can use so that I can best serve my audience. If it's right after lunch and I got the 1:30 slot, or you have the 1:30 slot and they're starting to doze off and the coffee hasn't come yet, you better ramp up your speech real quick to get their energy up so they pay attention to your audience's understanding of your message. Same thing with evaluation. We are evaluating a person, and so we have to have empathy of what that person is going through. Are they excited about hearing this evaluation? Are they nervous? What stage are they at in their Toastmaster journey? And how best can we pick that person up from point A and carry them on to point B? Our job as an evaluator is to be a coach, not to value on a scale of 1 to 10, or those little circles that we used to have of 1 through 5. Did the person use vocal variety or make eye contact? We are taking a human being in our club and taking them from Pathways Project 2, Level 2, to Pathways Project 2, Level 3. What best thoughts can I provide this person to get them over the little hump that they are? Maybe they stand still and they have prayer hands and they're not moving very much, but they're on Pathways Level 4. No one has told them yet, hey, put your hands beside your side, relax, it's okay, chill out, feel those feet. Right now you're probably feeling your shoulders in your ears, relax. So by being empathetic of where the speaker is as an evaluator, we can understand best what they need at that moment, and then the evaluations are huge. And how we do that is by relationships. We create a great relationship with the speaker. We know that we want the best for them. So we have to say that we want the best for them. We have to make a connection with them and let them know that we're not going to beat them up. We're not here to chastise anybody. We're here to help each person out. And we can best do that by creating a relationship as a coach. And a coach helps move people from one position over to the next. So think of yourself as a coach. Brand new to Toastmasters, this is your second meeting, wonderful. You're a coach to someone who's brand new to Toastmasters, one meeting in. We all have great ideas. We all have great ideas about the world, and we need to share that with people. So catch yourself if you start to think, well, maybe I better not evaluate because I don't have anything to say. Or boy, the speaker that I'm supposed to evaluate is so experienced. They've been in Toastmasters for 12 years. What could I possibly have to say? Catch those thoughts, because those thoughts are limiting beliefs that don't do you any good, they don't do your speaker any good, and they definitely don't do your club any good hearing your thoughts. So number 1 is catch those thoughts. Number 2 is empathize with your speaker. Understand what are they going through? How best can I support them? Even though we have some fear inside of ourselves, what can I do to best support them as they move along in their process? And that is on page 2. Page 2 will talk about evaluation versus coaching. And it goes over a few items about coaching to help you think about yourself as a coach. Even if you don't think yourself as a coach, you are a coach. You are coaching. And I want you to be a coach for that person because they're looking up to you. The psychology of the speaker is, oh man, that speech just sucked. No one laughed at my jokes. I tripped all over my notes. No one listened to me. When I looked on Zoom, everyone was checking their email. That was horrible. Those are the thoughts that are going on in our brain. And as the evaluator, we have to pull that person out of those thoughts and tell them everything that went great with their speech before we get into areas that can be improved. So we're always going to start with areas that went well, so we can pull the psychology of the person to an area of receptiveness. And then we start to talk about areas of encouragement for next time. Not what happened or went bad this time. Where could they go next time to give them a forward look of, oh, wow, interesting. Oh, I could do that. I could move a little bit more. I could take my prayer hands and put them by my side and take my shoulders and put them in my back pocket instead of by my ears. Good idea. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for that. So we want to imagine the psychology of the speaker and think of ourselves in their shoes. What are they going through right at that time? I've been to so many meetings where we will give an evaluation of a test speaker and we'll ask the audience, okay, where did the speaker do anything well in their speech? And it's crickets. A room full of Toastmasters and no one's speaking. No one is having empathy of that speaker who's saying, okay, I'm ready to listen to things that I did well, and it's quiet. And what does that speaker think? No one liked my speech. They all agree with me. It was horrible. No one laughed at my jokes. And that couldn't be further from the truth. What's taking place is the whole audience is not empathizing, and they're stuck in their own self-belief that they're not good, that what they have to say won't count. And so they're not helping that person out. So please, please, please check into yourself of, you know what, I do have something to say and I am going to say it. That's where we're going to go with this. So that's a little bit about why we evaluate, the psychology of an evaluation, of relating with somebody. Now, what do we evaluate? And this is the second part, because maybe that question is, I don't know what to say. I watch a speaker and they're just great. I'm pretty new. I don't have any feedback to give them. Well, In Pathways is built upon our Competent Communication series. And our Competent Communication series, easy for you to say, is built on 10 speeches. And of those 10 speeches, 5 of them are the building blocks of a great speech. And I want you to use those bones of a great speech to look at every speech you give from now on. And of those projects, did the speech have an organization, an opening, a body, and a conclusion? Was there a main point to the speech? Or did it meander along like a long summer tale that finally the person sat down because the red light came on? Did they use vocal variety? What was their alliteration like? How did they use their words? Did they use technical words that were way above everyone's head, talking about autonomous vehicles? Or did they bring it down to where we could understand? How was their body language? Did they feel comfortable in their body? Did you notice them backing up, leaning back on their heels, maybe subconsciously being afraid of the audience and of the screen, and so they back up to create some protection against them and the audience? How do they feel? And lastly, were they into it? Were they emotionally involved in the speech? Were they congruent? Did their face, their nonverbal gestures match what they wanted to tell the audience? You, as an evaluator, are keeping track of all of these items that the speaker can grow on, and you're keeping track of areas that they did well in and areas that they could even do better next time. And you can do that by the very second to last page is our cheat sheet. And this is how to evaluate. And this is a roadmap to success. A little bit earlier, I talked about the 2 main reasons that block us from being a great evaluator. And the first was psychology, that we're not good enough, that we don't empathize, that we're stuck in our own stuff before we can help somebody else. And lastly is, once I get out of my own stuff, what do? I listen to a speech. I see many evaluators jot copious notes down, and then when they stand up in front of the group or the camera, they don't know where to go. All they see is a blur of chicken scratch, and they have no idea, oh boy, where do I start? So we're going to spend a few minutes on how to deliver a great speech so the person that you're talking to receives the information that you just took in and can grow from that. In your roadmap to success, this is going to be the most important. On the next page is a blank version that you can use, but we're going to talk about this page right here, the roadmap to success. And what we do is we always, every time we listen to a speech, I write a line right down the middle of the page. And on one side, I have the plus column, and the other side, I have the negative. It's not really negative, it's a delta. It's what could be changed. And as I listen to the person speak, I take feverish notes on everything that the test speaker did wonderful, that it communicated effectively with the audience. On the other side of the sheet, I write down everything that could be improved. We start off with what we liked and what we didn't like, because that is gross or large language. And what we want to do is we want to, after 1, 5, 10, 15, 50 evaluations, we want to hone that language down from what I liked to what I didn't like to what was effective versus what did not work, what was not effective in communicating the speaker's ideas to the audience. So the plus column, everything that effectively communicated the test speaker's ideas to the audience, that worked well, the humor, the timing, the pacing, the voice, the vocal, everything that worked well. Other side of the sheet, we're writing things that didn't miss the mark. Maybe their facial gestures were off. They didn't move. It just didn't make sense to you. The content wasn't right. This way, you have a 50-50 shot of what worked well and what didn't work well. And then when you get up to deliver the evaluation, you can go down that sheet. And I recommend 3. 3 on the positive and 3 on the delta side. 3 is just stuck in our craw for some reason. Red, yellow, green. Traffic lights. Tic-tac-toe. Manny, Mo, and Jack. The 3 Stooges. The 3 golden bears. 3 is everywhere. And so 3 allows us as a test speaker listening to the evaluator understand, oh, okay, there's 3 positive points. Cool, I can write down 1, 2, 3. I'm used to doing 1, 2, 3. Oh, there's 3 points that I can improve on. 1, 2, 3. It's not unbalanced. I don't have 17 positive points that many neophyte, brand new fledgling evaluators do because they want to lap on the praise. They don't feel comfortable saying what's in the change column. And then when it comes to the change column, it's empty. So every time I've given a evaluation, I see someone, pen and paper, pen in hand, they're ready. I'm talking about all the positive things they did, and they never write anything down. Not until I say, okay, let's talk about what can change. Boom, pen hits paper, they start taking notes. These are all the things that I can change. So that's where we, as a speaker, really want to hear. I want to hear what I'm not seeing, what I can change, what I can do differently, and then I can take that next time. So when you are giving your evaluation, just notice, how is someone receiving the positives that you're giving them and then the could be betters that you're giving them? Pay attention. And we can only pay attention when we are psychologically in our own comfort zone of, okay, I can do this. I can give an evaluation. I have a roadmap. I've got 3 points I can easily follow, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. So I feel more comfortable delivering this. And the more you do it, the easier it gets over and over and over again. So that was quick and dirty. What we're going to do now is have a test speaker, 225. Our test speaker will be giving a 3 to 5 minute speech today. It's an off-the-cuff speech. And what I want you to do is I want you to take a piece of paper and I just want you to draw a line right down the middle and put 1, 2, 3 on the left side, 1, 2, 3 on the right side, so you can keep track of areas that our test speaker did well, where she communicated effectively in her speech, and then 3 points where she could improve for next time. And then what we're going to do after the test speaker, we're going to break up into triads, little breakout rooms. You're going to go in there and you're going to have 1 minute each person to talk about 30 seconds of 3 areas that the test speaker did well and 3 areas that test speaker could do better. Now, what may take place is you may have 7 areas that you really liked about the test speaker and only 1 that you could improve on. And this is great feedback because you want to notice, oh, wow, I'm really lapping on the praise, but I'm not really seeing what could be done better. And this is an area of growth for you that you can say, oh, I need to really start to pay attention to a test speaker or the speaker so I can notice some improvements for them. Not only for them, but for you. As you pay attention to the speaker, you learn from them. You learn by sharing that. So by you turning up the volume to 8, 9, 10, maybe 11 on your listening skills, you become a better speaker by watching other people what works well and doesn't work well. Sound fair? I believe that the PDF is being shared in the chat right now. So I will now introduce our test speaker. Elaine Lung will be giving a 3 to 5 minute test speech, and our evaluators are ready with pen in hand. Please help me welcome Elaine Lung with story time. Elaine, over to you.
It's the kind of phone call that's not a surprise, yet you're never quite ready for it either. It was a late July 2018 evening. My cell phone rang. It was from my brother, Augie, in Ohio. Augie never calls me. Never calls me. He's 3 years older than me, but you know, like everyone else in Ohio, I don't know what it is about my family, but it's like the phones do not work out of Ohio. They only work going into Ohio from California. I'm always the one calling. But when Augie said to me, Pop's gone, it wasn't a real surprise. My father had been struggling with health issues for a while. So we packed up, my husband Terrence and I went back to Ohio and got involved with all the things for a funeral. And you know how it is, it's busy, yet there's a sweet side to it. When the whole family gets together, when friends take off work and drive across town to pay their respects, and you gather together and memories are shared. So at just such a meal that we were sharing memories, my younger brother Andy said, why do we always have to have a funeral to get something wonderful like this to happen? And I was thinking the same thing. I said, Andy, we should do something. We should have some kind of get together regularly for our family and friends. He said, that's a great idea. And he went right ahead and reserved a picnic pavilion at a local park for November 2018 in Ohio. He said, let's do something, because something is better than nothing, and we're really good at doing nothing. I couldn't agree more. So a couple months later, I was on the plane again back to Ohio. And, you know, I was kind of mulling things over, because a couple weeks ahead of the plane ride, I called Andy up. Now, I know he's a single dad with an active young daughter. And I know he's the guy who said, hey, I'm getting married next week. Can you make it? With a week's notice. And I'm in California. And still, when I emailed him the couple weeks earlier, he said, hey, Andy, we should invite people to this party, right? I mean, it's happening in 2 weeks. Yeah, that's a good idea. Someone should do that. Yeah. So we got on it and we invited people. We sent out the invites. And I'm on the plane and I hit the ground on Friday with Terrence. We get to Andy's house. We say, all right, so we're ready. You got the plates, utensils, the food. Not really. Someone should do that. Well, I guess it's us. So there we were, Friday night, going up and down the aisles of the Chardon Walmart, throwing stuff in the basket, plates, everything, hot dogs, chips. And the next day we were at the park at noon, Saturday. I was worried. I said, Andy, will anyone come? I mean, did we get enough food? Is this going to work? Is the weather going to be okay? It was kind of a gray day. When we got to the park, the picnic shelter was beautiful. It was enclosed with a heater. There was an outside area with a huge fireplace. And my other brother, Augie, rolled up with his van and he started loading firewood into the fireplace. And before long, a huge fire was rolling. And I was setting up the interior area with the heater and the going on. And all of a sudden, all the people we had invited started to come in ones and twos, and then threes and fours. And they brought food. They brought huge pumpkin pies. They brought avalanche bars, which are like Rice Krispies on steroids. They brought salad made of spaghetti. They brought beer. They brought maple syrup. They brought all kinds of food to share. And the smoker was smoking, the grill was grilling, and we were having a great time. And before I knew it, the day went past. And I realized Andy was right. We had nothing to worry about. We had really gotten together and had a great time. And as we opened the last beer and watched the huge fire die down after everyone else had left, Andy's girlfriend Julie started regaling us with stories about her horses and how amazing they are. And I reflected, it had been really a wonderful day. Now, it's August 2020. Terrence, my husband, gets a phone call. It's that phone call that you're not surprised to get, but it never seemed ready for it either. His father had passed away. And about a month later, at the ashes scattering ceremony in Half Moon Bay, I looked at the cousins and their babies, the cousins I hadn't seen since their wedding, the babies I'd never met. And I looked at my sister-in-law, Audrey, and I said, Audrey, have you heard of a something is better than nothing party? She said, no, tell me about it. I think it's time for a West Coast version of something is better than nothing. Because as we know, something is always better than nothing.
Thank you, Elaine. What a wonderful speech. Thank you, Elaine, for stepping up and taking us on that story of a speech. What we are now going to do is break out into breakout rooms. You have 5 minutes with 3 of you in there. And what I would charge you to do is speak for 1 minute, 30 seconds on 3 areas that you identified that Elaine knocked it out of the park, where she did a great job. And then share 3 areas that she could improve the next time she gave or gives the speech. See if you came up with 3, 5, or 7 positives and 1 or 2 negatives, or 17 negatives and only 1 positive. I doubt that. But vary that and see if you could modulate what you took in from Elaine. Share that 1 minute each, and then there's about 120 seconds of fluff time there. So, Madam Meeting Manager, would you please send us to our breakout rooms, and we'll come back in 5 minutes and have a discussion. Welcome back, everybody. Looks like we're coming back from the breakout rooms. Teleportation is possible now. Thank you, Dartra. What do you know? From room to room. So now we're going to do about 5 minutes worth of just breakout facilitation. What did you find about that exercise? Was it easy to come up with 3 positives and 3 improvements for Elaine's speech? Did you weigh heavy on the positives and couldn't find that many, or vice versa? And was it easy also to explain that in 1 minute? So a trick of evaluation is we have to be concise and condense what we want to say within 2 to 3 minutes. Otherwise, we get the red flag, we get disqualified from a contest, and people stop listening to us after we roll on and on and on. So we want to be concise. Was it easy to get 3 done in 30 seconds and 3 done in another 30 seconds? So please, in the chat forum, go ahead and type what you found easy or hard, and Elaine is going to bring that up in the chat, and then we will have a quick discussion of what that was. What I found out in our chat room is Jen and Marcia were in my chat room, and both had exactly what I wrote down in my evaluation for Elaine, although it was hard to condense it into 1 minute. We intended to continue to talk and espouse, and what we really want to do is get concise with what we have to say, because time is of the essence. Elaine, anything come up yet?
It was hard to edit down which 6 things to choose. It was easy to mention positives, difficult to find areas of improvement. The speech is pretty good, so thank you. Difficult to condense it into 1 minute. I think it took 2 minutes. It's hard to find what's to do better. I've used this format before. It's great. I thought we had a nice balance of positive and improvements needed. Holly, Chi, and Margie commented. 3 on 3 was too much for 1 minute. Easy to find 3 positives, challenges to find improvement.
What it sounds like is taking place is we want to refine our skill set. And the more we do this, the easier it gets. It gets more and more refined when we start to pay attention and we put our mind in a framework of what to do. The more we confine ourselves by discipline, the easier it is for us to be creative. So what I found in my competition days and my current evaluation days is if I can have a column of 3 and a column of 3, I know what parameters I can operate within that. I don't have to go on with a long list. And then I know exactly to make it bold and big, so when I deliver that evaluation, it is easy for the person listening to understand. Because if I do all this great critical thinking about the speech, but I can't deliver it, and the speaker doesn't hear it from me, I'm just yelling into the void. It does no good. So a big chunk of our evaluation is the relationship we build with the speaker so they can take the information that we just processed and hear it and grow from it.
Yes.
Does that seem right in the chats?
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. Yes, yes, Kristian.
Yeah, the 3 minutes that we get, 3 minutes and 29 seconds to be exact, are not equal. We don't have to give 1 minute and 45 on the positives and 1 minute and 45 on the critique or the improvement section. As I mentioned before, people really want to hear things that they're missing, things that they didn't notice they were doing, subconsciously what they were communicating. And so take a minute to build a relationship with positives and encouraging facts about their presentation, and then spend 2 minutes and 30 seconds telling them areas that they can improve in the future. it'll feel like it's 50-50 because it's 3 and 3, or maybe it's 2 and 2, or maybe it's 1 and 1. The idea is we want some balance. We want it balanced, not to have 17 positives and only 1 critique or 1 improvement. So have some balance there, but know that the time is not balanced because people really crave for things that they're missing in their communication. Any last ones, Elaine, before we jump off?
Just some specifics on facial expressions, gestures, getting to the point, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're ready for your evaluation.
Great. Well, the thing I'll say before we jump into my evaluation is it is a skill set. And the more we can practice this, the more we can allow ourselves to say, yes, I'll be an evaluator. And then we can practice a framework that you come up with, the easier it gets for you over and over and over again. And you'll notice the people who are great evaluators have been doing it a lot. And they say yes. They step up and say yes. So it becomes easier for them because they do more evaluations. They do more evaluations because it becomes easier for them. And that's what I would love for you. Elaine, thank you so much for being our test speaker today. You did a fabulous job. Today I'm going to talk about 3 areas where you knocked it out of the park and 3 areas that you can improve on the next time you give this presentation. First, I loved your pause. I wasn't sure if it was a technical difficulty or what was taking place, and then it drew me in. It made me pay attention. I've been on many meetings where I'm typing away and the person is speaking, and then there's a technical glitch or they pause, and it breaks me away from my email and makes me look at the screen. What's going on? Are they pausing on purpose? Did they fall down and can't get up? So you really drew us in with that pause. Excellent technique there. Second, it was your comedy. Phones in Ohio, good, not good enough. You did a great job of bringing in some of that Midwest humor into your speech. And what that does is it relaxes us as an audience. It knows that you're comfortable as a speaker. It makes me comfortable as an audience member. And lastly were your facial expressions. You did an excellent job showing off your facial expressions because we only get a little box that we can portray our message in. And your face is front and center, and you express to us the great job that you had in giving that story. Stories are so emotional, and you showed the story on your face. So excellent job there. Now, 3 areas that when you give this speech again, that I hope you do, maybe in a contest, you will knock it out of the park even harder. And that is hand movement. I saw some of your hand movements were down here low, and they had no purpose in the speech. They were feverishly moving back and forth and distracted me from the message that you were having. So perhaps slower hand movements. I'm not sure. Yeah. Hand movements that we can see that have a reason and a purpose to your message rather than just being around. Second, of course, is the background. I would love to see more warmth in your background. Maybe a plant, maybe some contrasting colors. The dark is great because it really highlights your face. Although I want to be brought into your story with your whole surrounding, what's taking place. So much in Zoom, we want to find out a little bit more about yourself, maybe a little bit larger room. It sounded like the sound was bouncing off the walls. You have some hard spaces behind you, and sound really bounces off, and that can be slightly distracting with that. And lastly is a call to action. I would love to hear a call to action about what I can do in my life, how I can prepare myself for that phone call that may come, that might inevitably come. So what steps can I do to prepare for that, to leave me with that story? The story is the launching point to the point that we want to make at the end of our speech. You did a fabulous job stepping up to the plate, giving us an excellent speech, masterclass in storytelling. You're a master of that. And lastly, I want to leave you with, hopefully next time you will leave the avalanche cookie recipe in the chat room for us all. Elaine, thank you very much.
Thank you. Fabulous job.
Thank you. Thank you, Elaine. You did a fabulous job.
Happy to do that. Yeah. And Kristian asked me to do this about half an hour before we went live.
We're Toastmasters. We speak. That's what we do. We say yes.
You love it.
We say yes.
I love it.
That's right.
There's always challenges. Always challenges. Okay, well, we're at a quarter of the top of the hour, everyone. So now we're going to roll into some Q&A from Mr. Kristian Crump. And honestly, he's one of the best evaluators I know. If I hadn't mentioned this, he is one of the people who advised me when I won the District 101 speech evaluation contest in 2019. He was one of my coaches, fabulous talent. This is the time to take advantage of his incredible knowledge. So if you wouldn't mind, into the chat, please put your short, specific questions for Mr. Kristian Crump, and I'm going to start one off, if I may, while we're waiting for that, with Kristian. What's probably the biggest mistake you would say you see an evaluator do in Toastmasters?
The first mistake is not saying yes. The first mistake is playing small, of not practicing the skill, of taking the role, the functionary role of joke master or timer, or preparing a speech and coming up with your 3 great points, your wonderful introduction, your closing smash, and not saying yes to the role, because that is hindering you from learning. Now, once we do say yes, or if we get pigeoned into it and we have to do it, then the biggest mistake is not being critical enough, not being conscious enough of what could be improved. And it's that psychology section there of, boy, I've got 17 great things to tell you. I really clap on the love, but I don't have anything for you to grow. And it's a balance that is called kisses and kicks. And we want a balance of kisses and kicks for the speaker. And it's knowing that a brand new speaker needs a lot more kisses to help them along the road. And a more experienced speaker needs more kicks. They already know what they do well. They want to know what they're not doing that they can't see. And so as an experienced evaluator, we want to know the balance of kisses and kicks to make it nice, happy, medium. The porridge isn't too hot. The porridge isn't too cold. The porridge is just right.
Okay, fabulous. Next question. How do I pare down what to focus on?
Perfect. Focus on what you want to work on. So perhaps a person is working on something that you want to work on. I like to use body movement. I like to watch the person's body, how they feel in their body, vocal variety, how they're doing with their voice, how they're using the control and command of what they're saying. Those are big areas that you can spot easily. We don't have to worry about content. We don't have to worry about, was the introduction tied into the ending? We don't have to listen analytically all the way through, but we can just see these gross body movements. Were they nervous? Did they seem nervous? Did they seem relaxed? Did you have a good time listening to them? Is huge. What if you didn't? What was off of it? Why was it off a little bit? Did they speak really fast and really talk, blah, 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 and it just made it uncomfortable for you to listen? You want to key into your own body's experience and then jot that down, because that person wants to know how they're effectively or not effectively communicating with you, aka the audience.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, how is a contest evaluation different than a normal club evaluation? This is from Marcia Davis Cannon.
Contests are, you're trying to woo the judges, and so much not the test speaker. The test speaker is a shill. So your main objective is to woo the judges. So you care less about the test speaker, and you care more about what you're teaching the audience and what you're telling the judges. So, and timing is extremely important in a contest as well. And it's the little things that matter. It's how you walk up, how you leave. A mentor of mine said, Kristian, the most important minute of your evaluation contest is the minute afterwards. After you shake the Toastmaster's hand and you walk away from her and you sit back down, the audience, aka judges, are watching you. Are you bent over? Is your psychology saying that really sucked, man? I don't know if I went over time or not. I saw the red light, and you're walking back. The judges see that. You want to have your shoulders back, your chin up. I nailed that thing. Yeah, that was great. Thank you very much. So in a contest, it all matters. The run-up matters, the exit matters, what you deliver to the audience matter. And so I'd love to talk with you, Marcia. If you want to compete, we can come up with a strategy to help you knock it out of the park. But contests are a little bit different. In a club, it's more friendly. It's not as timed. It's not as pressurized. You can have notes. You cannot have notes in a contest. You cannot have notes and win in a contest.
All right. Cynthia Nakayama asks, what are the main differences when you're evaluating in a virtual environment?
Great idea. So in a virtual environment, as we saw today, we're limited by this box that you can see here. And so what's taking place behind me is important. What's taking place in front of me is important. Vocal is my voice bouncing back and forth. In a virtual environment, I don't know how I'm being perceived. I can see my little screen on Zoom, but I don't know what each of you are seeing or hearing from me. So I would love to hear, do I need to soften up my walls in front of me or behind me? Because my voice, what I heard from Elaine's speech is that the sound was bouncing back and forth. I'm not sure what's in front of her, but I know about a foot or two behind her are some hard wooden doors. And so the sound bounces back and forth, and it can be a little bit distracting. So in a virtual, also, we need to have more body expression. we only have this little segment here. And so the more we can use the screen and get creative with bringing into the audience and lowering our voice because we know that we're closer to the microphone, or stepping back and bringing our voice up so we not having to strain the ears of our listeners, we want to play and practice with that. Which side is left and which side is right? As you read in the United States, we read from left to right. So is this left or is this left? It's very important to know that when we're communicating with the audience. Because to me, looking at you, this is reading from left to right, but your screen may be different. And so it starts to become backwards. So knowing the differences of your screen and what your audience is viewing. And that can easily be solved by a quick one-off Zoom with a friend, a Toastmaster, to go through all the technical pieces.
Okay, thank you, Kristian. All right, I was hoping we had time for one more, but we're up against it here with Q&A. And like Kristian said, he'll stick around after 3 o'clock or the top of the hour to answer your questions till they're all answered. And at this point, thank you so much, Kristian. Thank you for your questions, everyone. And let's hear some final thoughts from Kristian as he puts a bow on this one.
Thank you so much, Elaine. Thank you all for taking time out of your Saturday to sit and listen to this and become a better evaluator. Evaluation is not only so the speaker can become better, so our club members can become better, but especially so you can become better. How we can become best communicators is by watching excellent speakers and evaluating them. Most of us, our natural reaction is to watch a speech and do this. Entertain me. Please go ahead and speak, world champion of speaking. I want to laugh. I want to think. I want to cry. And that is a passive way of learning. And what we want to do is we want to lean in. What is working well? Why are people laughing? Why are people crying? And I want to take copious notes on why the impact is being had on me from the speaker. And when we can analyze that and judge that, we can use that in our own speeches. As I would compete many years ago, I would take what I would learn from the Toastmaster Leadership Institutes, and I would come back to my club and espouse what I learned from Rory Vaden or many of the world champion speakers. And my club members would say, wow, what sauce are you drinking, Kristian? I just paid attention, wrote down what they did well, and then utilized it in mine. And I noticed people who were active, their growth pattern went up and to the left. Others didn't. So I encourage each of you to practice, to say yes, and evaluate as much as possible. Elaine, thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Kristian. Thank you so much. All right. And at this point, it's time to turn it over to our wonderful program creator, Mr. Gavin Wong. Gavin, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Elaine. Thank you for being a Toastmaster today. Special thanks to our speaker today, Kristian Crump. Please help me give him a bigger round of applause. For our next session on next Saturday, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m., we will learn from Dennis Johnson to evaluate the advanced speakers. And he will give us an introduction of this workshop. Dennis, please.
Hi, well, this was a wonderful workshop leading into it, and it actually demonstrated one of the things that I find most frustrating as a Toastmaster. I do crave the kicks. I would like somebody to tell me areas where I can improve. Nothing drives me crazy like an evaluator getting up there and saying, oh, that was such a wonderful speech. I don't even know where to start. My presentation next week is entitled, I Don't Know What to Say. And I'm going to give you some tips on what you can say to those advanced speakers. So we'll look at ways that you can make it more speaker focused rather than focused on yourself. We're going to look at ways of providing more nuanced feedback to the speaker. And we're going to look at ways of giving honest feedback so that you can give people something to grow upon rather than just being nice to them or worrying about the impact that your evaluations are going to have. So thanks very much, Kristian, for this wonderful workshop. And I believe next week we can take it a step further.
Okay, thank you, Dennis, for this brief introduction. Also, please remember to give us feedback relating to this workshop or even our team. And we need your feedback. to keep it refined and to make it better and better, I hope with the help from you, the feedback from you, we can make this program iconic. The Toastmaster next Saturday for Dennis, the workshop is someone you're very familiar with, Declan Shelby. Any further comments or questions? If not, after 3 p.m., you can stay here giving feedback to Kristian, to Elaine, to our program chair, Izumi, or to me, the founder of this program. We just invite the best speaker, and we hope we have the best management, the best service for you week after week, year after year. Also, a good news here, because we will write a series of books relating to the workshop presented by the speakers for each workshop. You will access the first book before May 1st, 2021. So you can just stay here and give feedback to Kristian directly, your most favorite part or the parts you think can do it differently. Or you may give your own question or the portion you hope Dennis to tackle with during the next workshop.
Elaine has a challenge of showing us sorrow and grief, also with happy memories. And when we only have this box to play with, this right here is telling the whole story. And so being real conscious about what that looks like to the audience, what sorrow looks like, our face moving this way versus happiness, contemplation. So those are real key pieces rather than walking around using big body language. It all gets condensed into our face.
So that was one thing. And one advice I have for Elaine, and that is, how about giving voice to your characters? When you introduced your first brother and the second brother, I especially got confused with it. So how about giving a voice modulation or characters to the voices? This will not only take your speeches to the next level, but the people, if they are even passively listening to it, still they can absorb what you exactly want to relate to. These were a couple of things. And how about using the props? That will also add something to your speeches.
I would say it was a wrong decision to ask Elaine, because it's so difficult to find faults in her speech. If you asked for someone who is, on their way to get to the speech, like who's not the best speaker, I think it would have been easy for us to find faults. My biggest problem is if I have like 8 different faults, which is the one that I should highlight for that speaker? Here it was difficult. I could hardly come up with 1 or 2 issues with the speech.
Well, see, it's all an evil plan, Kiran, because we're just promoting Dennis next week.
Your speech would have been great for the next week, actually, because you're an advanced speaker and it's difficult to evaluate you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the kind comments and the thoughtful comments. I really appreciate it. And I'm working on making this better. But we all start with a mess and we go through it to make it a message. So everyone needs to make it better.
I have 2 comments, one for Elaine. Just to second Ishrat there. I had the same feeling that you were very expressive. However, your happy expression were much, much more in my feeling than the sadness of the 2 events of the 2 deaths. So I felt very similar to Ishrat. So that's so maybe more, since it's more than one person, so that may be coming through. So you might want to consider that. Now, the rest is, I really enjoyed the speech, especially it's an impromptu speech. So you're a pro, so very difficult to find what else is wrong. Now, I have a question for Kristian. How do we balance evaluating the content versus the delivery? Today, most of us focus on delivery, but how do we balance that? Isn't the content also important?
That's a great question. I'm going to answer real quick 2 questions in the chat and then come to you real quick. Lynn asked, just so if they want to hop off, they can hop off. Lynn asked what light I was using for my face, and I'm going to spin my camera around. I bought a light from a camera store, and it's I think it was about $100 or so, and it's got a umbrella LED light. So I use that, Lynn. $100, you can get them on Amazon or your local camera store. Works great for face. And Kat also wanted to see a picture of my notes of what I did for. So I used my sample with my line down the middle. And so I just write down 3 things that I really enjoyed about her speech, 3 things that I could think would be better. And then at the bottom, I put in her avalanche bar recipe as a little joke or a way to make light or to make the connection with her. And I write these in big bold. I don't have to write word for word. I just write a couple words to get me started on what I'm going to say. So every time I listen to a speech, I draw a right line down the middle, and I use this format. What that does is neurons that fire together, wire together. So the more we practice something, the easier it gets. Tonight, try to brush your teeth with your left hand. It's going to be a train wreck, unless you're left-handed, right? Try to brush your teeth with your non-dominant hand. It's going to be a train wreck. Do it for 2 months, and you're going to be a pro at it. So same thing with this skill set. You do it over and over again in a format, and you're going to get it. So Hung, content. Content is, I try to stay away from content quite a bit. I try to do how the person is delivering the speech in their body, mostly. Content is really up to the speaker's purview, what they want to say. I'll usually only comment on it if it's not right for the crowd. So if it's off color, if it's blue, if there's cursing, if it doesn't match the vibe of the crowd, then I'll bring it up that maybe this content wasn't right for this audience. Maybe we had some children in the room and you used some political or some humor that didn't work. But I rarely talk about the content because it's up to the speaker, and I want them to have the creative expression to use what they want for content. Did you have a follow-up question or thought on that?
No, that's great. Thank you.
Perfect. Good. Pam, it's hand.
Kristian, one of the things that I'm aware that I need to be clear and more concise, but in going through how the speech could be better, could be improved, let's take Elaine's on pacing, like I was thinking as I was going through, if I were giving the evaluation, I would want to point out where the pacing fell down, how she might have changed it, and maybe give an example. But by the time I'm doing all that, I'm using up a lot of time. So it seemed like I was listening to you when you were saying, like, you pointed out what it was, you gave the example, and then you point out how it would change it. I don't know how you do it, but somehow you did it quicker than my brain can put all that together and say it. Because that's a lot for 3 things. Here's what you did. Here's how it didn't work. Here's how you could do it differently. And here's how I think it could make your speech better next time. It's like, wow.
The philosophy is that each one teach one. So what you're really doing is, if we were in a regular club setting, you're not only giving an evaluation of Elaine, but everyone in the room is listening to your speech, and they're taking on, it's the radio station, what's in it for me? So the rest of the audience is saying, what can I learn from what Pam is talking about Elaine? Where can I take that and put it into my speech? And so the word why comes into place. Why is it important to have a background? It's one thing to say, Elaine, change your background. That doesn't do anything. Right. Elaine, you might want to think about changing your background because ... the why. Elaine, when you used humor in your speech, that was a great thing. That's not enough to say humor. Elaine, you used positive humor in your speech. Why is it important to use humor? What you're doing by saying the word why is you're teaching the audience. And you may not want to do 3 and 3 whys. You just may want to do 1 and 1 and then talk about why. What you're doing is you're expounding of what you're talking about. And then people look at you and say, wow, you just taught us why it's important to use humor, because it relaxes the speaker, it relaxes the audience. That makes sense. I'm going to use humor next time because I get why we do it. Why do we do the things we do?
So don't be afraid of expounding, of sharing with the audience why that might work better.
Exactly. And why she would want to change. Maybe why would she want to change her background? What benefit would that have for her? We're selling her and the audience members, because the
Right.
audience members may say, you know what, I'm stuck up against a wall. I don't want to have my sound bounce back and forth. I'm going to change that back in my home studio. So
Yeah.
you're teaching the audience and using Elaine as the example.
Yeah. One thing I'm taking away is to do the positives quicker and then spend more time on expounding on the changes and the education.
Just like Dennis mentioned a few seconds ago, he loves and craves to hear what he could do better. We all do. So there's a big pie, and there's a K in that pie. It's what we know in our life, and it's a small little slice of the pie. And then there's a DK underneath that, and that's a little bit bigger piece of the pie, and that's what we don't know. And then the rest of the pie is what we don't know that we don't know. I don't know that every time I talk, my finger goes in my ear. And I'm just giving my speech, and I'm telling you about my family vacation and what happened. And it's up to my evaluator to say, Kristian, get that hand out of your ear. You don't need to do that. I've got no clue I'm doing this. This is subconscious. We have no clue the things that we do in our speech because we're nervous, we're scared, we're trying to memorize what we said. And so the subconscious comes out. A lot of women with long hair will start to twirl their hair, or their hair will come in front of their face. They'll slouch. Prayer hands. No one writes a speech and says, you know what, for 5 minutes, I'm going to put my hands like this and talk. No one plans that. But it takes the evaluator to say, hey, get those hands down, put your palms on your thighs, and give us a speech. And they say, wow, I didn't realize I was doing that. That's in that huge circle of I don't know what I don't know. And it's up to my evaluator to show me what I don't know so I can turn that into what I know. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, it makes absolute sense. I just need to talk quicker, I think.
Start with one point, and then it'll get easier. You won't talk quicker. You'll talk more succinct.
There you go.
Your words will matter. Seinfeld says he'll spend 3 days taking a joke with 7 words into 6 words because he knows the power of getting to that impact of that joke within 6 words is huge versus 7 words. And that's what we practice. Once we get the feet underneath us and we talk, blah, 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 that's why we have the red light. We need to figure out how we can get our message across in 7 minutes. Everyone fears the red light when we start. Everyone ignores it when we get comfortable. Mm-hmm. And our journey is, once we're comfortable, we have to respect the red light because we have to respect our audience's time and the time of the group.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's helpful.
Yeah, I just had a quick
sure.
question. I always have a problem when I'm evaluating somebody and they sound really rehearsed or really robotic. Is there a nice way of putting that forward to let them know that? Because I know usually it's because they're nervous or early on in their path, or maybe not. They could be later on. But any tips for that?
Yes. So you can bring that up. And what makes you more comfortable probably bringing that up is creating a solid foundation of respect with them at the beginning of your speech. Maybe you have that, maybe you don't in the club. But what you want to do is you want to say, Holly, I am so glad you gave that speech. I'm so invested in your speech. I really look forward to hearing more speeches. I've got 2 areas that I really want to tell you that you just knocked it out of the park, that you did amazing. And I'm also going to talk about 2 areas that you could improve more. A 15 or 20 second spiel like that builds the foundation of the relationship that you're going to tell them. Nobody wants the bedside manner of a doctor to come in and tell us, well, you know, Kristian, you got 3 weeks to live and you're gone. I'm going golfing. See you later. I want to be warmed up to, right? I want them to come in and have some bedside manner. And that's what we're doing when we're creating the relationship with the person that we're evaluating, that you're letting them know that they've got lots of positives as well. And what I noticed is and you say exactly what you said. It sounded rehearsed. It sounded like it was really rote. And what that does, and the why really helps, that Pam brings up. Why does sounding rote not communicate well with the audience? Because and then you talk from your feelings. It sounded like it was cold. It sounded like it wasn't personalized to me. It sounded like you didn't want to be there. These are my observations of what I just saw. And the person will say, wow, that wasn't my intention. I didn't mean to sound cold. I was just so nervous or so wrapped up and so reading my notes that I didn't realize that I was coming off that way. Holly, thank you so much for sharing that with me. And I'm going to practice making it more comfortable. I'm going to use bullet points instead of memorizing my speech maybe next time, so I can interact with the audience more. That makes sense?
I like the suggestion of bullet points. Yeah.
For the starting, any of the speaker who is starting to speak for the very first time, they have many flaws into it, like body language, speech development, vocal variety. You count, it goes on. So like if we are giving them the evaluation, what are the 3 points we should highlight? Best 3 points to highlight them, any of the beginners, intermediate, and advanced.
Right. So if they're brand new to Toastmasters, I would not give them any positives, and I would list probably the 14 or 17 things that they could work on. I'm kidding. You would scare them away. You would scare them away. You want to just pick your top 3. And what happens is they are starting on a path that's going to take months, if not years, to get better. Many of us in this room, chat room, have been a Toastmaster for over 3 months, 6 months, into 3 years, 6 years, and we're still coming back and learning. And so it doesn't matter where you throw that dart and it hits. The most important thing is they want to know, is this a trusting and safe environment for me to learn? And if you really lay on those kisses at the beginning of a neophyte speaker, then you can give them, so on a neophyte speaker, brand new speaker, I would give them nothing but praise and maybe one thing to work on, because they are so flooded. If you all can remember when you learned to drive, when you learned to ride a bike, when you learned to swim, when you learned to do anything, you were flooded with input and didn't know where to start. You didn't know your knee from your elbow. And all it took is just one thing to move to the next level. And so we don't want to overload them. We want to be empathetic. We want to empathize with where they are. Where is this person now and how much can they take on, right? That's where the empathy comes in. As they move down the process, we want to balance it 3 and 3. Maybe if it's someone like Dennis who has won several awards, then I want to just say, Dennis, great job. You knocked it out of the park. And now I'm going to work on some things that you can improve, because that's what he wants to hear. He doesn't need affirmation. He needs education. It's a balance of affirmation and education, kisses and kicks. Lots of affirmation for folks just starting because they're not sure if this is right for them. Lots of education for someone who's, the red light is on all the time. They don't have enough time to get out all the information. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you, Kristian.
Thank you for all the scintillating scintillating questions, answers. And now let's move to the parts for the suggestions or expectations for the next workshop, Evaluating Experienced Speaker by Dennis. The next workshop is just dovetailing this one. They work together.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to hearing Dennis's take on it, because that's a hard skill, is to evaluate an advanced speaker. And so I know he's going to come up with some skill sets that we can look for. The idea of today's seminar was to get us comfortable saying yes to presentations and evaluations. And then Dennis says, once we say yes and we come across, inevitably, we're going to come across a guest speaker who just knocks our socks off. What are some tips and techniques that he's going to teach us that are going to help us identify those, so we don't have the idea of, well, there's nothing I could come up with. So Dennis, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, Dennis, do you have any comment?
Elaine, what a wonderful speech. I enjoyed your story. I caught on to the same thing that many people did, that it didn't seem like your facial expressions and your vocal variety matched the seriousness of the topic. And the reason for that, I believe, is that I would have liked to have heard more specifics about the people around you and about your feelings of how things were transpiring at the time. By giving some specific details, you would naturally change your tone and naturally change your gestures as you were remembering what it was like when you were talking to Augie. And he would be the person that I would kind of focus on, because it seems like as you were talking to him, perhaps he had a mischievous gleam in his eye, and it's something that made lighter a situation that might have been more difficult. Now, I'm guessing at a specific example there. You undoubtedly have some specific examples that you could pull from, and by sprinkling those in, you'd be able to share the emotion with us and let us come along with you. Yeah. So that's the kind of thing we can talk about next week.
Wow, thank you. By the way, here is a bonus for for the members who are still here. The bonus is during Danny's workshop, he will evaluate 2 really advanced speakers in the workshop. So just reach out to me, Ishiras, or our current chair, program chair, Izumi. We only have 2 members and you can deliver the speech. You know, you can receive the feedback from Dennis and from many, many other members with different perspectives and angles. I think it's really, really a treasure if you are really into public speaking. But I require you to get really, really prepared. So prepared that maybe you think Dennis couldn't find any place for improvement. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, you see what's happening here, just as Kristian was saying, everybody's got to be willing to say yes. Well, I've said yes for 13 years to doing evaluation. No problem, I can step up and do it. So what do I need to do to challenge myself? Well, I'm going to do 2 evaluations of very experienced speakers back to back. Why am I confident that I'm going to be able to find something useful to talk about? Because I'm going to be amongst Toastmasters and you're not going to let me fail. You're going to be there to encourage me and you're going to be there to give me the impetus I need, because I know that I need to deliver high quality feedback so that all of you will be impressed. And knowing that I have that pressure is what's going to give me that bump to get over so that I can become an even better evaluator. And that's the kind of thing I need at this stage of my career. Yeah, the first taste is free.
Okay, thank you. Also, another piece of information is this session from Kristian and the next session from Dennis. Actually, the 2 sessions are working together to get all the contestants for the full fusion in the final evaluation contest really, really prepared. Just spread the information to the contestants. Sure, to any Toastmasters or your friends. I think anyone who is interested in, I believe, communication will benefit a lot from these workshops. And if you want to be a test speaker, just send me an email or just message me. Here is my email.
Oh, I just put
Enjoyed the extra challenge here today too. So thank you for that. Along the lines of what Dennis said. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Elaine. Yes, Yufan, please.
Yeah, I just put in a suggestion. Can Dennis evaluate the Toastmasters International Champion speech?
Right, Dennis? You're nodding?
That's interesting. See, I had no plans to do this workshop next week until Gavin challenged me with it about a week ago. Let me think about that. If I could easily do an evaluation of a WCPS speech, but I could do that in a Zoom recording. I wouldn't necessarily have to do it in a live session. So let me think about that.
Yeah, you may deliver another workshop in the future, this year or next year, relating to evaluating the champions.
Time, Gavin.
Any other comments or suggestions or expectations or any issue, stubborn issue relating to maybe speeches, even speeches, especially evaluations, you want Dennis to tackle with? Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Kristian, Elaine, everyone. These workshops are wonderful. So Dennis, since you're evaluating advanced speakers, telling us how to evaluate advanced speakers, one thing that comes to mind is there's both the problem of evaluating very good speakers, and then there's also experienced speakers that don't necessarily, I think they're very comfortable. And so when you try to evaluate them and you need to give them feedback, that's constructive feedback, sometimes it's very difficult to say something negative because they have so much experience. And I think I have a problem with that. I don't know if anybody else does, but it stops me. So I'm just wondering if you would be able to also, you know, talk about the other side of it where they're very experienced, but they do, maybe they've gotten too comfortable.
We definitely will talk about this.
Thank you.
In the past week, in fact, has to do with giving very specific feedback that is geared toward helping people with a great deal of care and affection, and being sure that you're giving an equal amount of both of those. And radical candor is the
right. Yeah.
That's what, and it's brand new for me, but apparently many people have heard of this. But it's something I've been doing for 10 years without having this terminology around it. So this is great for me. Now, what most Toastmasters clubs sadly do is give what's called ruinous empathy. That's where you care a great deal, but you don't challenge people directly. And that's how they become comfortable the way that you're talking about, where they've been given great empathetic, loving feedback for so long, and no one has told them, and by the way, you're really boring. Now, you wouldn't want to tell them you're really boring, but you have to find a way to tell them, really, honest to goodness, 12 minutes on the tax code is not something that I look forward to when I come to a Toastmasters meeting. So this is something that we do have to deal with, is giving people the feedback that's actually going to help them. One of the things I was discussing with Gavin earlier is very often when English isn't your first language, people shy away from saying anything about pronunciation of words or the expression of emotion, as it comes across differently from different cultures. And if you want to win a contest in the United States version of Toastmasters, you're going to have to adjust to the speaking style of Americans. And so by never talking about that, some people miss out on the opportunity to compete or win in contests because of simple changes that they could make if someone had the courage to actually point it out. So we'll talk about these kinds of things.
That's great. Thank you so much. That really helps.
Let's call it a day and take care.
Take care, everyone.
Good job, everybody.
You.
Ismail,
Thank you, Kristian.
Thank you, Gavin. Thank you, everybody. Great to see you.
Thank
Ismail,
you.
call in about 5 minutes.
Kristian, great job. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Dennis. We'll see you next Saturday. Looking forward to it.